we are 5 minutes after 10 a.m. So thank you all once again for joining this webinar. My name is Prisca Numbisi. I work as Project Support Manager at ERTICO. Today I'll be your moderator and the host for this webinar session. You're welcome once again to the SUM Project webinar organized by ERTICO in cooperation with INRIA, NTUA, VEDECOM, CHALMERS University, and Police. Today we shall be addressing the topic Methodologies and Tools to Evaluate and Monitor Shared Mobility Status and Citizens' Acceptance in the SUM Project Living Labs. Thank you. In my next slide, I'll be bringing to you some attention points for this webinar. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and made available to all after the session. We shall also use only the attendance count for reporting and no personal details. And please, we kindly encourage you to use the Q&A to raise questions for the speakers. Thank you. I kindly invite you to meet the speakers of today's session. We shall firstly be addressed by the project coordinator, Lisa Hanselmann, who is the SUM European Project Manager representing INRIA. Thereafter, we shall hear from Amalia Nikopoulous, who is Senior Researcher and Doctor from NTUA. And also, we shall be addressed by Thea Cosnier, who will take us through the user acceptance on the user acceptance for the SUM projects as per the Living Labs. And she comes from VEDECOM, and she is the Research Associate in Social Psychology. We shall also hear from Dr. Pontus Wallgren on the co-creation activities within the SUM project, and he is the head of the Division for Design and Human Factors from CHALMERS University. I will take you through the SUM project open data platform, and I am Prisca Numbisi, Project Support Manager from ERTICO. Thank you. Please, here you have the rundown of the agenda today. Together with my colleague Ainoa, we are working on this session, so please note that the webinar recording has already started. And as per the agenda, welcome of the agenda and the overview is presented by me. I welcome you all and thank you for joining this webinar. Please feel free to put your questions in the Q&A and also address the speakers. We shall have an introduction of the SUM project from the project coordinator, Lisa Hanselmann. Thereafter, Dr. Amalia Nikopoulous will take us through the SUM project standardization impact evaluation framework and also the summary of the shared mobility status in the SUM Living Labs. We shall also hear from Thea Cosnier on the methodologies and tools to assess the new shared mobility acceptance by citizens. And finally, we shall hear on co-creation activities on the shared mobility solutions in the SUM Living Labs from Dr. Pontus Wallgren. I will take you through the open data platform for monitoring shared mobility in Europe. And I am Prisca Numbisi once again, and welcome to this webinar session. I give it over to you, Lisa, to start the webinar with the introduction of the SUM project. Thank you.
Many thanks, Prisca, for the introduction, and thank you all for joining today. So as Prisca said, I am Lisa Hanselmann. I worked at INRIA as a project manager, and I'm here today to give you a brief introduction to the SUM project before my colleagues that Prisca mentioned will dive into the details of the activities we will be running in the Living Labs and how we will monitor shared mobility status and citizen acceptance. So first, what is the SUM project? Well, it is a project which aims to contribute to mobility transformation in Europe with a specific focus on the integration of shared new mobility modes with public transport. We will first work with 15 cities and aim to expand to 30 by 2030 by developing a replicable solution that will ensure reliability, affordability, and financial viability of new shared modes combined with public transport. The project is co-funded by the European Commission. I know if you can go to the next slide, thanks. Thank you very much. It's co-funded by the European Commission for 36 months, and we are about to reach the halfway mark of this project as we started in June 2023, and the project will run until the end of May 2026. It comprises 30 partners from 13 different European countries across Europe. And what we want to achieve with them, well, a number of objectives have been identified, which we present here, which include improving the operational competitiveness of NSM compared to private cars, increasing the NSM uptake through better and safer physical infrastructure, encouraging travelers to use NSM through pricing and nudging, evaluate the increase of NSM through the different measures we are implementing, and ensure the financial viability of these measures. And with all of this, we will aim to provide guidelines, share our results in webinars like this one, or in events that we will mention at the end of this webinar. So stay in touch till the end. How do we exactly plan to increase uptake of NSM in Europe? Well, the SEM consortium is working around 5 technological pillars that aim to provide solutions for cities, municipalities, regions, NSM providers or public transport operators who are looking to change the way we approach transport modes in cities. The first pillar that we are working on is passenger demand and shared vehicle availability prediction. It appears from various research that availability and reliability are often key reasons for car users to prefer using their own cars than alternative modes. So here, to overcome this barrier, we want to improve passenger journey experience and reduce service uncertainty by providing information concerning availability of modes. So we hope that it will allow travelers to make decisions regarding which combination to choose when they want to travel from point A to B. The second pillar we are working on is on-demand shared mobility management. And for this, we are looking how we can increase service performance through passenger-oriented design and operation of shared mobility modes. So the overall demand for shared mobility will be assessed, and targeted intervention to specifically attract car users will be tested in our living labs, and in particular in the city of Jerusalem. The third pillar we are looking at is scheduling and ticketing integration of new shared modes with public transport. And here we are very much looking to maximize the synergies between these two modes instead of treating them as competitive service. So we will tackle the issue of combining modes and reducing door-to-door travels of passenger by using new shared modes to fill the gaps of public transport and increase its service areas. So then I'll move on to the fourth pillar, which is the co-creation of mobility hubs and street space, for which Pontus will share a lot more details very shortly. And here we're looking to improve infrastructure for shared modes from a safety point of view, but also for usability of it. So we're looking at street profile and layout, as well as creating mobility hubs, which facilitate use of new shared modes. And finally, the fifth pillar we are working on is mobility management. And under this pillar, we are looking in particular to 2 areas. Firstly, nudging, which we're looking to introduce a menu of trips option that implicitly encourages passengers to choose one mode more than another, and through pricing by developing and testing effect of different pricing strategy on the usage, performance, and environmental impact of new shared modes. So we are hoping that by introducing these schemes, it will introduce new novel business model and drive down the cost of NSM, as often seen too expensive by users or those who still do not use these services. The solutions that we are developing under these 5 technological pillars will be implemented and testing alongside other push and pull measures in the living labs of the SUM project. And these include 9 cities ranging from Munich, Geneva, Jerusalem, Penteli in Athens, Rotterdam, Krakow, Fredrikstad, Larnaca, and Coimbra. As you can see, the living labs comprises 9 cities distributed across Europe with heterogeneous situation in terms of current infrastructure and transport offer. So we hope to have a very wide range of scenarios, which can be then replicable as mentioned initially. I think this brings me to right on time to hand over to my colleague Amalia, and I hope that this gives you an overview of the intention of the SUM project. But if you have any questions, please do ask in the Q&A and we'll try to address them in this webinar. Many thanks.
Thank you, Lisa, for this introduction. Thank you, Prisca and Noel, for everyone else for joining this webinar. So yes, in this presentation, I'm going to present the evaluation framework for the impact assessment in the SUM project, and also I'm going to share with you the results of our analysis on the mobility status of the living labs in the SUM project. Prisca, should I take control because there are several slides? Is this okay with you?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, so you can see the screen, Raul, the first slide. Okay, thank you. So yes, in order to demonstrate the value and the benefits of shared mobility of the SUM project and the measures implemented in this project, of course, it is important to make an effective assessment. Typically, what it is done is to use KPIs in order to, they are considered a universal instrument in order to evaluate the progress of shared mobility strategies. So we are also using them in the SUM project. In our methodology, we have started with a thorough literature review. We wanted to see overall, globally, what are the indicators, which are the metrics regarding the evaluation of mobility policies implemented elsewhere. So we have done in the project a thorough literature review on that. Following the literature review, all performance indicators were assessed. We have a list of many key performance indicators, KPIs. We have assessed all of them, and we have come up with a specific set which aligns with the project's objectives mentioned in the introduction part. So we have introduced the standardized impact evaluation framework. And what is that? It is our tool, the project's tool, in order to track and Okay, sorry, there was a connection problem. So there was a tool to track and evaluate the performance of the living labs before, during, and after the implementation. So far, we are on the before phase. We are going, of course, to use the same framework, the same KPIs in order to track the planned measures after their implementation. The core principles of the Civitas evaluation framework has been incorporated into this framework. Overall, it has two evaluation phases. It has a phase of the process evaluation that assesses planning, execution, and operational processes of the measures. And then there is the impact evaluation phase that encompasses the assessment of diverse technical, social, environmental, and other effects. And these are going to be reflected due to the mobility measures implemented in the different living labs. In order to show this graphically, this is a figure illustrating the idea. You can see that there are two horizontal levels, the two phases of the framework as explained before, the process evaluation phase and the impact evaluation phase. And of course, when measuring when trying to evaluate the assessment of mobility measures, it is very important to measure both the actual level of policy implementations as well as the perception of people, the perception of citizens. So this approach created two different vertical dimensions, and as you can see in the upper part of the figure, we have the actual and the perceived dimension. So we have the actual and perceived dimension on four different levels: the policies level, the transport system, time, safety, comfort, and cost. And we also have the impact evaluation, where we are trying to assess the impact of the measures. Overall, there are 13 global indicators, and there are going to be some local living lab specific indicators based on the specific measures implemented in each city, in its living lab. So this was a very brief description of the impact evaluation framework as introduced in the project SAM. Next, I am going to give a summary to present the results of the data analysis of the mobility status in the SAM living labs. In order to get the status of mobility in its living lab, we have launched a survey that was used to investigate the travel preferences of the citizens. So the survey was actually designed as, how it is called, a revealed preferences survey form, record behavior of the citizens in the living lab before the implementation of the transformative mobility measures. And of course, these travel preferences are also going to be collected after the implementation. We want to find out, uncover changes in the mobility patterns, revealing the efficiency of the selected measures. And as you're going to see next in the next slides, the survey consisted of four main sections. We wanted to record the travel behavior and familiarity with mobility measures of the citizens in its living lab. We collected travel diaries. There was a section on the transport system evaluation and social acceptance. And of course, there was a section related to the socio-demographic characteristics. So next, we're going to continue with a summary of mobility of measures in SAM. And let us start with the modal split. First, let me explain that in the SAM project, we have 9 living labs. The survey was launched in the living labs last year. It was a period of about 3 months, from December to November until January. However, the survey was launched later in one living lab, Jerusalem, due to the political situation last year. So I'm going to present the results from our data analysis of the 8 living labs in the project. So the first data analysis shows the so-called modal split. The modal split refers to the share of trips per transport mode. And respondents in this section revealed their behavior through travel. So basically, each respondent could describe up to 5 trips, providing the destination, the mode, the time, and the purpose of the trip. And there were different options in a drop-down menu as alternative options to the car. Of course, there was the car, taxi, train, bus, motorcycle, bicycle, e-scooter, walking, car, and other services. So what we can see here, the blue color, of course, represents the percentage of car users. So, of course, in all the living labs, we see a strong preference for private cars, and then followed by the public transport use, which is in these orange colors. In most of the living labs, the percentage in blue, the car users are, of course, it is dominating. There is a strong preference for private cars, and this is something that we would like to see to change during the project duration and after the implementation of the mobility measures. So first, from the modal split, as expected, we show a strong preference for private cars of the citizens of all the living labs in order to perform their daily activities. Next. We made an analysis related to the departure times. This analysis, where we have got figures as shown in this slide here, it shows the temporal distribution of trips across the various transport modes. So we wanted to have this analysis because for two purposes. First, we can see with these figures the dominating transport modes in its living lab, and also we want to see these figures highlight the temporal windows where the citizens are using most the transport modes. So the temporal windows actually refer to the peak and non-peak hours observed in the city. So for instance, for the Pedeli case, the Athens Pedeli case, as you can see in the first figure, we can see that reliant, as you can see the green colors here, on cars, and high peaks are observed from 9 to 11. The time is here on the horizontal axis. So we have high peak from 9 to 11 in the morning, and again from 5 to 6 in the evening. Car usage in Pedeli in the evening, and this is a strong indication for using this mode of transport throughout the day. Public transport, and mainly metro, emerges as an alternative, particularly during the morning and midday hours. So we can see this analysis gives for Pedeli, and of course for the other living labs, a very good, let's say, representation of how citizens are using the transport modes and at which time, the temporal distribution. On the other hand, Fredrikstad exhibits a different mobility pattern. Mobility there seems to begin much earlier. There is significant activity early in the morning, around even at 5 a.m. The cars are mainly dominate in the peak hours, the car usage, from 5 to 8 in the evening. And this also showcases a higher late day compared to others. Regarding the departure times, Munich showed also, as other countries, a morning peak starting at 8 o'clock in the morning. And then the afternoon peak was a little bit earlier, from 3 to 5 p.m. Taxis, metro, train, and cars were also used. In Geneva, also, the morning peak hour was about 8 in the morning. A high proportion of trips start around 11, mainly using public transport. And also the bike users are following a similar time distribution. In the Rotterdam Living Lab, peak hours mirror those of many cities. So basically we see that also in Rotterdam, morning traffic is around 8 in the morning. But we see here, compared to other cities, that bicycle trips in Rotterdam are aligned very closely with the patterns of car. Of course, there are a lot of bike users there, and this is a mobility pattern that we don't find in the other cities. Krakow, also in the Krakow Living Lab, we see an early start, a significant in the city. It was an important observation was that the respondents often describe just one trip that leads to these temporal partners, and also there are buses and cars as considered to be nominal modes of transport for daily activities. In Coimbra, the peak hours follow the same patterns of those of many cities. They also have the same distribution of car usage. And in Larnaca as well, we observe the same morning pattern. The traffic peaks at 8 in the morning, and then again we have the afternoon peak around 5 in the afternoon. In Larnaca, as we also saw in the model split figures before, car seems to be the only solution. They have a very, very high percentage of a high user in this city. Next, we are going to continue with another indicator, what we call the trip purpose. So this is another perspective that we added in the survey we got from the respondents based on the purpose behind its journey. So we wanted to see whether there was a purpose such as commuting to work or returning home, whether there were any, the respondents wanted to attend educational institutions. The purpose was for shopping, recreation, health-related visits, things like that. So what we saw, we compare here the Munich and Krakow case. In Munich, the data set predominantly contains recreation trips using a variety of transport modes. There were also, of course, work-related trips, and we can also see that trains are very frequently used for activities such as shopping, work, educational activities. Whereas people do not use taxis for this purpose. In Krakow, on the other hand, the mobility patterns are dominated by work commuters, primarily using public transport, buses or cars. And then we can also see a lower share of afternoon trips, resulting in fewer trips being recorded for activities other than work. So there are also such as recreation or any other activities which is not work related. So we analyzed the data that we got from the surveys for the other living labs as well, and we got the following results. In Rotterdam, of course, as expected, bicycles are commonly used for commuting to work and for any other activity, recreational or shopping activity. Metro is also primarily used for work commutes. Cars for going to work and going to other leisure activities. Taxis are also emerging as another alternative for going to work. In Geneva, cars and bicycles and also walking are the primary modes of transport, and we see there a more uniform trend. In Larnaca, of course, we mainly have, again, the usage of cars, but also for recreation trips, trains or metro, and taxis are the most popular choices. In Fredrikstad, for work commute patterns, we see the use of cars, buses, bicycles, and of course, ferries, which is a unique case for the Fredrikstad Living Lab, which highlights also the distinct nature of this Living Lab compared to the other. And finally, in Coimbra, cars and buses are the primary modes of transport. As the next step, we also wanted to assess the transport system as evaluated by the citizens. So we have used relevant questions in the survey. So the assessment of urban transport systems in the different living labs is based on the responses that we got from the survey, the respondents' perception, which of course is something that shapes their travel behavior, their mobility patterns. So there was a separate section in the survey in order to collect this data. First, we started with a metric, an indicator that we can use to evaluate the transport system, which is on the expected in-vehicle travel from their daily activities, work, education, any other recreation activities. So what we see here, in the data analysis, we created these figures that shows a relationship of in-vehicle travel between peak hours and non-peak hours. So we try to visualize this observation, and this also is an indicator of the performance of the transport system. At least in the way that it is perceived in the living labs. So what we see here is the public transport system evaluation with respect to the expected in-vehicle travel times in Krakow. So it is perceived as rather slow and very, let's say, sensitive to peak hour disturbances, because a significant number of the respondents placed their estimated travel times out of the expected norms. So using a private car seems to offer a substantial reduction in travel time. So the respondents estimate that if they use a travel car, they're gonna make 20 minutes less compared to other modes. This is an important observation that we wanted to get. The perceived walking time is also very high in the Krakow Living Lab, because a lot of respondents estimated that it would exceed 70 or 80 minutes there. Cycling, however, was a much quicker option, is considered to be a much quicker option with estimated travel times about 20 or 30 minutes. And the same was for taxis and private cars. Motorcycles are considered to be the fastest mode, which offers a reduction of about 10 minutes in the in-vehicle travel time. So overall, we got similar observations, or not similar. For some of the living labs, the results were similar. In Pedeli, we noticed a high difference in perception of travel time between peak and off-peak hours. For instance, during non-peak hours, the car travel is expected to take from 0 to 15 minutes, but it could take up to 30 minutes during peak hours. Also, in these hours, public transport does not appear to be an attractive option for the citizens. Around 85% estimate that it would take 30 minutes more than using their private car. On the other hand, in Rotterdam, we saw very, very low perceived in-vehicle travel times, up to 10 minutes, and this could be also reflective of the city's efficient transport infrastructure. Walking was not considered to be, it was also considered to be let's say, quite fast, as taxis and motorcycles as well. In Geneva, there is a large difference in perceived travel time via private car during peak and non-peak hours. Taxis are also considered to be a quicker alternative, and public transport is seen as more resilient to peak hour disruptions compared to private cars. In Munich, 20% of respondents estimating their in-vehicle travel time for daily activities like work and education at just 0 to 10 minutes, regardless of whether it is peak or off-peak hours. This is let's say, an interesting observation that we didn't see in other living labs. When it comes to public transport, though, citizens estimate the travel time as longer, reaching up to maybe 30 minutes in order to reach their final destination. In Larnaca, also respondents observed a significant difference in the same way during peak and non-peak hours. Interestingly, for approximately 25% of the people using buses and public transport, regardless of the time of the day. However, still the public transport users are expecting longer travel times during peak hours than private car users. In Fredrikstad, the perception of travel time by car is quite consistent. Mostly, let's say, we could say that it is irrelevant of the peak or non-peak hours for many of the respondents, and taxi users were following a similar pattern. However, public transport users think that give a travel time of up to 20 minutes. Another percentage gives a travel time up to 30 minutes, regardless of whether they travel in peak or non-peak hours. And finally, in Coimbra, during non-peak hours, car travel is expected to take about up to 15 minutes, but of course there is a difference, and this time could increase during peak hours. Again, as in the we mentioned earlier in the Pedeli case, public transport does not seem to be such an attractive option. A very high percentage of users say that it would take up to 30 minutes more than using their private car. So we see here already from the results that we have very diverse living labs in terms of their transport, the transport system infrastructure, the city, let's say, topography, the different cultures. We see all these different patterns in how people are traveling. And finally, we had some results that we analyzed regarding the perceived safety and the acceptance to the citizen satisfaction. So we had a separate questions in the survey where we are showing here the heat maps, some heat maps that show the relationships between in-vehicle peak travel time and perceived safety per transport mode. So we are watching in this slide the Coimbra case, where we can this heat map illustrates a very high variance in perceived safety ratings across all the transport modes, where we see that there is a diversity in the opinions, in the answers that we got from the respondents. This is also a safety rate can range from 1, which was considered to be the very unsafe option, up to 7, very safe. So there is high diversity. Public transport is not perceived as particularly fast, with travel times estimated from 30 to 45 minutes. On the other hand, for the motorcycles and bicycles, people think that they are fast, but however, they are not safe. Citizens feel unsafe about this mode of transport. And there is also a high standard deviation in the safety ratings in this mode. So people, a lot of participants in the survey gave the answers of safety with values ranging from 3 to 6. So all this we see here again, this heat map shows the relations times and perceived safety. We got results for all the transport modes available in the results for the Pendelli case. There is again a high variance in perceived safety ratings across cars, taxis, and other modes. Public transport is not perceived as particularly fast, but it is considered to be rather safe. With a level 3 or higher. Motorcycles and bicycles, of course, seem to be faster, but again, considered unsafe by the citizens. In Rotterdam, we see a different pattern. Public transport, followed by cars and taxis, is perceived as the safest mode of all. Motorcycles are the least safe, and also bicycles are considered to be rather at the higher safety ratings, with levels 4 and 5 being the most common, and the majority of people rated them at such a high value. In Munich, there is a notable percentage, about 15%, who consider the cars very unsafe, despite the fact that they are fast. The city has the lowest perceived safety rates across all transport modes. Cycling as a transport mode seems to be a safe option for the citizens, and also walking is perceived as both the unsafe and slower mode, with rather low values at the safety scale. In Larnaca, again, we have varied perceptions of safety and travel time at peak hours. Car users consider again this option, the car mode, as the fastest. Even sometimes at peak hours, they will experience over 30 minutes of delay. Safety concerns are minimal in this case. Taxi users also feel generally safe. Motorcycle riders report a quite wide range of travel time differences, but they feel unsafe overall. This is something, a similar observation to all the living labs from the data that we collected. And also safety concerns are raised by the survey participants for bicycle using. In Fredrikstad, again, the motorcycles are consistently viewed as the least safe option. Then cycling follows, and also a large percentage, and notably significant percentage, falls within the category of very unsafe and more than 90 minutes of walking time, suggesting that walking is therefore not a favored option in this city. Finally, regarding the perceived safety in Krakow, there is a high variance in safety and time perceptions across all transport modes. The cars, the taxis, and the walking mode are considered to be safer than the rest of the modes. Public transport is considered very safe, but of course with an extended travel time of 20 minutes. Motorcycles, again, are taking the most negative safety ratings. And finally, regarding the transport system evaluation, we wanted to be able to evaluate the citizens with the existing mobility services. So from the data that we collected, we see here the Munich case. We see high, from the survey, we got high satisfaction rates, approximately reaching the satisfaction means by equal to 4.4 and around 4.5 respectively. And this is an indication that residents are quite satisfied with their transportation system. In Athens, in the Pedeli case, we have a mean satisfaction score on the lower end, and this is an indication that there is a desire from the citizens for improvement in transport services. Coimbra had an even lower satisfaction score with a mean of around 2.2, which is rather low. So this is shows that there is a need for enhanced transport solutions. Fredrikstad and Krakow, on the other hand, are exhibiting higher satisfaction levels. Citizens are quite content, quite satisfied with the mobility options, the mobility services that they have. Larnaca has a mean of 2.6, which is, as for the Coimbra case, this is rather low. And Rotterdam, as in the case of Munich, they showcase the very, let's say, rather high satisfaction score, which means that the residents are quite content with the transportation systems. So in order to conclude, on the basic metrics, the basic indicators, and the basic, let's say, results that we got from the analysis of the data collected in the survey. Regarding the modal split, as expected, we saw a strong preference to private car usage in most of the living labs. Exceptions were observed mainly for the Munich and Krakow living labs. A higher diversity of transport modes was observed. The living labs also demonstrated very diverse patterns with respect to the temporal distribution of trips across various transport modes. the in-vehicle times as well as the trips purpose. The results also revealed high variance in safety and time perceptions across all transport modes in its living lab, which means that we see very diverse preferences among the residents. And finally, regarding the satisfaction of mobility solutions, most of the living labs, maybe apart from the Rotterdam and Munich case, demonstrate low mean satisfaction scores. And this is an indicator that there is a need for even better, improved transport solutions. Hopefully, we're gonna with the implemented policies in the SAM project, there will be an improvement in all these cases mentioned before. So this is all on my side. I don't know if there is a question.
Thank you very much, Amalia.
Thank you, Prisca. I hope I was on time.
No problem. We are always on time when we listen to this very impactful presentations and overview. Thank you so much for presenting the Standardized Impact Evaluation Framework. We understand better that to assess and to measure mode share within several living labs, you have to address several patterns, and we are happy for to learn about the trade purposes and the other patterns that we evaluated also on the satisfaction. Thank you a lot. We have a question from the Q&A, and it comes from Ari. It reads that did the perceived trip length across modes relate to the same trip every time? As in, is it possible that bicycles are simply used for shorter trips than cars and are not actually perceived as being faster?
Yes, Prisca, can I see somewhere the question, or could you repeat, especially the first part?
Yes,
Can
you
I
can
see
go
it
to the
in the
Q&A.
chat somewhere?
Yeah, if you go to the Q&A, you'll see the question there.
Okay, it's loading, but I don't know. Okay, all right, now I can see it. So the first question, did the perceived trip length across modes relate to the same trip every time? Perceived trip length across modes relate to the same trip every time. Yes, it was relevant. It was about the same trip every time. Yes. So is it possible that bicycles are simply used for shorter trips than cars and not actually perceived as being... is it possible? Okay, if I understand the question correctly, regarding the first part, yes, the perceived trip length across the modes was related to the same trip every time. So the idea of the question was that the respondents were asked to let's say, describe up to 5 trips that they are making. So their estimations on the travel time was related to this trip that they were referring to. I don't know if this answers the question.
Thank you, Amalia. I think, yes, that answers it. I mean, we can always take more questions in the Q&A and we can address them further later. Thank you so much for presenting about the survey results of the pre-survey results of the living labs. And this fits perfectly in time with our next presentation, which will be on the methodologies and tools to assess the citizens' acceptance, because we've heard a lot about the disparity in various living labs, and it would be interesting to understand how do we nurture and encourage people to use more shared mobilities and what are people's perceptions and acceptance in detail. So thank you very much, Thea Cosnier. Over to you.
Thank you, Prisca. Hello, everyone. So I'm really sorry I don't have a camera on because it's not working. I'm really sorry for that. I hope you can hear me well. It's the most important thing. So I will present to you indeed today the methodology and tools we use to assess citizen acceptance. So to do so, we first will see what is social acceptance. So I will present to you the definition and objectives of such task, and then we will see how we assess social acceptance. So what are the methodology and tools? And at the end, we will see what we can learn from such assessment. So I will present to you the result and recommendation we got from the first assessment we made in the SUM project. And then at the end, we will talk about the next steps, and of course, we will have some time for a Q&A. So first question we want to answer is, what is social acceptance? Well, social acceptance refers to an individual, maybe we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So it refers to an individual's subjective judgment on a technology, and on what makes it attractive, useful, or even essential for a user. So in other words, acceptance is really a key element when having a project like SUM, because it helps understand why people are using or not using innovation. So it really is a prerequisite for a successful deployment. We could even consider it as important as the technical development of a technology. For example, if you want to develop a vehicle that could travel like 1,000 of kilometers in a few minutes, but to do so, passenger must, I don't know, sing a Britney Spears song over and over in harmony, well, you might not have a great acceptance of your vehicle. So you might want to, before marketing such solution, to assess acceptance, because it helps you understand what makes the innovation attractive or not to the users, and what are the factors that you can play on to help having a better implementation of such technology. So social acceptance is an evaluative process. So we have three key moments in social acceptance, three main steps when talking about social acceptance. So first step is a priori acceptance, is when the individual hadn't had the opportunity to try the innovation yet, so they only heard about it. So at these steps, we talk about a priori acceptance because the potential user only build a representation of the technology based on a comparison with what they already know, with other innovation they already know. So they didn't have the opportunity to use the innovation. And then we have the second step, when the users use for the first time the innovation. So at this moment, their representation of the innovation will evolve with the first use. So we call it acceptance for use. And the final step is appropriation, because the user had the opportunity to use the innovation for several months. And so at this moment, the innovation became an entire part of his habits, of his lifestyle. So the representation he has of the technology had time to evolve, but is also more certainly stabilized at this point. So the innovation is long-term adopted. So we have for each of these steps three key moments, three assessment. No, sorry, it's still the slide before. Thank you. So for each of these steps, we assess social acceptance to see the evolution of acceptance pre-implementation with a priori acceptance, and post-implementation with acceptance for use and appropriation. So we see the evolution of acceptance with the use of the innovation and with the implementation of the innovation, so throughout the whole project. So now that we've seen what is social acceptance and why it is very important to assess it, and when we are assessing it, we should see how are we going to assess it. So when you are building a methodology for social acceptance assessment, you really want first to identify the type of acceptance that you want to assess. And to do so, you want to answer three main questions: what, who, and in what context. So when I say what I really want to talk about is what are the innovation characteristics. So in SUM, we are working on connecting new shared modes of mobility with public transportation. So to assess acceptance of such innovation, we first need to understand what are the new shared modes we are working on and what are the specificities, because it really will not be the same to assess acceptance for buses, for example, than for bike sharing. For bike sharing, maybe perceived safety might be a more important factors on for buses, etc., etc. So you really want to define very clearly what is the object of the assessment. And then who, so who are the potential user, what are their characteristics, So we want to understand, who are the potential users. Sorry. So in sum, we mostly address the users of private vehicle that could reduce their use of such vehicle by using new share modes and public transportation. So those potential users have characteristics that we want to take into account in the building of the methodology. And last, the context, which is a very important and determinant factor in acceptance, because the assessment must be adapted to the specificities of the context of use. For example, we can ask ourselves questions such as, are we implementing in a urban area, in a suburban area? Are there specificities such as meteorological condition, cultural aspect, and so on? So in sum, it is very, very important to take this aspect into consideration, because we are working with 9 living labs. So each of these living labs have a very specific and local context. So it is very important for us to define these aspects very clearly, so we can take them into account in the building of the methodology and also keep them in mind when we are interpreting the results. So once you define what you're assessing, you need to define how you will do so and what are the tools and theoretical models you will use. So social acceptance can be assessed by qualitative methodologies such as interview or by quantitative methodologies such as survey. So for some, we choose to make survey because it was the most relevant strategy given the object we are studying, but also given that we are working with 9 different living labs and it's the most easiest tool to it's the easiest tool to adapt to such different contexts. So to build the survey, we studied scientific literature and theoretical models, because there are many theoretical models that are describing the variables impacting acceptance. So we studied the one about new share modes to identify the factors that are known to impact the acceptance of such solution. So here you can see the one we selected in sum. We selected experience with new share modes, so performance expectancy, facilitating condition, which can be seen as the ease of use, and the effort expectancy also. Social influence is the influence of someone's surroundings, opinions, and behaviors, and the hedonic motivation, which are the enjoyment and pleasure associated to the technology. So we saw in the scientific literature that all of these variables are known to impact the intention to use new share mode. So intention to use, or behavioral intention, as you see it in the slide, is our main predictor of acceptance. So to say it very simply, when we say that there is a high acceptance of an innovation, what we mean is that the level of intention to use the innovation is high. So this survey is what we use to assess a priori social acceptance in the SUM project. And now I will present to you the result we had from this first pre-implementation assessment and the recommendation we carried out from this result. So the main result we had are that gain of time, perceived gain of time, and real gain of time, availability, safety, social influence, and experimentation of the services were all very important predictors of the increase of a behavioral intention to use new share modes. So what can we do with those results? Because now we have those results, and it's very interesting to know, but the main objective of social acceptance is really to provide recommendation to the project and here to the living labs so that they can improve the implementation, so that they can play on those factors to improve the implementation of such solution in their living labs. So I put some example here of recommendation we can make on this given those results. So we know that perceived gain of time is an impactful factor. So for example, we advise the living lab to anticipate the route delays and to share real-time information with the user on the journey and its progress. About safety, we can advise VLL with equipping the vehicle with safety equipment, communicating about the safety measure, and help people using safely the vehicle. And experimentation of the services, where we saw with the result that having experimenting the service for the first time was a very important predictor of the intention to reuse it another time. So you could encourage a first experimentation of the service by having, for example, demonstration days or proposing promotional offers. So those are examples of recommendation we could draw from the result we had from the a priori acceptance assessment, so that the living labs could have a better implementation, a more successful deployment of innovation, and they can improve their future activity around the innovation. Talking about the future activity, What's next on the acceptance assessment in sum? Well, what I presented to you were the result from the a priori acceptance assessment we already made during the first year of the project. So we are currently working on the acceptance for use assessment, which is a post-implementation assessment that will happen right after the user had the opportunity to use the innovation for the first time. And the last year of the project will be dedicated to the assessment of appropriation, when the user had the opportunity to use the innovation for several months. So we still have two post-implementation assessments that will happen. And once we will have all of those results, we will be able to have a very general overview of the evolution of social acceptance throughout the project, with time, with use, and with the implementation of innovation. So this is really our final goal, is to observe the evolution of social acceptance throughout the whole project. So I think I presented to you the main aspects on social acceptance. I'm sorry I had to go rather quickly on some aspects, so please let me know if there are any questions or anything.
Thank you very much, Thea. That was a very impactful presentation. I think we are all very informed now on how to evaluate social acceptance, especially to encourage people towards more shared mobility. Maybe we have a question for you. Now we talk about acceptance and you talk about social acceptance. So is acceptance necessarily social acceptance?
Well, no. We usually consider that there are two type of acceptance. So today I was talking about social acceptance. So social acceptance have an interest in the impact of social and collective variable on the intention to use an innovation or to have a behavior in general. But we also can talk about practical acceptance, which studies the acceptance of an innovation from an individual point of view. So it comes from cognitive psychology and ergonomy, and it involves, for example, working on the design of an innovation, on an interface, on such aspects that can also impact the acceptance. So there is social acceptance and practical acceptance.
Okay, thank you. And within the SUM project, we will be addressing both acceptances, both the social and the practical.
No, we are only addressing the social acceptance.
Okay, thank you. And given that we are addressing only the social acceptance, how many people do you need to actually sample for the evaluation of social acceptance?
Well, the number of participants you expect will depend on many aspects, such as the methodology you use or the sample you surveyed, because if you use a qualitative methodology, for example, you generally expect fewer participants than with a quantitative methodology. First, because it's harder to find participants for such methodology, but also because the data are not the same. It's not the same type of data. But for a survey like the one we use for the SUM project, we generally ask ourselves about the size of the population we are interested in. So the question you must ask yourself is, what is the minimum number of people you need for the sample to be representative of the population? And there is also another reality to take into account, is that there are practical limits that you face when you carry out such study on a large scale and in a very different context. So you have to ask yourself also what is the number of people you think you can reach with the distribution strategy you have for such survey. So you have to strike the right balance between the people you think you can reach with your distribution and the sample you want to have, so that it is representative of the population you are surveying. To give you a very practical answer for this first survey and the one that we will do in the next step, we are expecting at having 200 respondents per living labs. So yeah, it's the number we had.
Great. Thanks a lot, Thea. Thank you very much for presenting with us today. And I think following from the last question on the number of respondents, we go right into the next section on co-creation activities that is going to be presented by Dr. Pontus. And we would like to hear from him about the co-creation activities that are taking place or that are planned within the shared mobility solutions in some living labs. Thank you very much, Dr. Pontus. Over to you.
Thank you. So, yeah, I'm Pontus, and I'm here to talk about co-creation. I think that the first thing that we need to talk about is what we mean with co-creation, because it's one of these words that you hear quite a lot nowadays. It's gone up in popularity, I would say. It's a really old thing in reality, but now it's popular again. And co-creation can be defined as any act of collective creativity shared with two or more people. So that is Saunders and Stapper's definition of co-creation. So that is really, really a broad term, and can be used sort of and applied to almost all development activities. It's usually not one person who is doing the work. But in most cases, we talk about collective creativity with people who are trained as designers in some way and people who are not. And you also hear the word co-design, which is defined more as this collective activity is applied across the whole span of the design development process. So much more specific. And I think that one of the things that is the basis of this idea of co-creation is the idea that everybody is creative in at least some form, and therefore can be involved in design of products and services. And in some, we are co-creating different things. So far, we will co-create mobility hubs in Munich. We will co-create street space in Pentelli. And we are co-creating services around autonomous ferries in Fredrikstad. And the idea in some is that we start with some examples, and hopefully other living labs will also get inspired to try to co-create things. I will talk mostly about what we think we're doing in Fredrikstad, because that's where we are the furthest. So why should anyone want to work with co-creation? And there are a number of different arguments for co-creation and why it might be a good solution if we want to design new products and services. One argument is that with by engaging users and citizens and in the development of products and services, we can come to better solutions, so that we can actually find solutions that are better than if we weren't, if we just try to create solutions and then putting them out in the city and measuring acceptance afterwards and see if did this work or not. So that is an idea. There is also this idea that we will get pre-negotiated solutions. So if you I think that cities is a really great example of where you can see that new solutions is implemented in the city, and afterwards you see a lot of complaints. This didn't work, or we don't like this, and we don't like this, and so on. And by involving citizens in the case of the city, we can come up to solutions. And things like mobility in a city is such a complex situation where you have city planners, you have traffic planners, you have different service providers, you have the citizens, and the citizens have different goals and so on. So we have situations where there are a lot of different things that we need to understand and take into consideration when we're designing a new service. So by involving all these groups in the design of the solution, we can have this sort of negotiation going on already in the design phase, which saves a lot of time and money and grief. It's also a way to engage citizens, and that's how it's been used, I think, a lot, trying to, because every city, I think, struggles with how to engage citizens, and doing co-creative sessions could be a way to engage citizens. And the last point I have there, I think maybe is the most important, is, I mean, we can do co-creation and co-design in order to design solutions and say that, okay, because we want this solution, and this solution that is the outcome of the co-creative sessions is the solution. But we can also think of it as a method and see, okay, it's not the outcome in itself that is the most important. It could also be the insights that we get through working. So the figure there is also from Saunders and Stappers, and they talk about, if you want to understand what people think, you can ask them. If you want to see what people do, you can observe them. But if you want to get into really understanding people's motivations and inner things and get really, really deep, one way of doing that is through what they call generative sessions, by actually making stuff and doing stuff, and you can understand, so why are people designing solutions that looks in this way? Can we from that understand what their needs is and use that to get a better understanding of people's needs and requirements and get deeper insights that we can't really just ask people about. So co-creation could be a really, really great thing. I think that there are some obvious problems with co-creation, and one of the big challenges is hierarchy, and especially I think power hierarchy. If you involve citizens in designing new solutions, you also have to be prepared to give up a little bit of your power, that the solutions that is designed, in a way you cannot promise that must also affect the outcome. So there is all these sort of hierarchies in terms of power, in terms of knowledge, in terms of who is allowed to be creative and so on. So there are a lot of challenges there. It's also quite challenging to engage citizens and get engagement in all co-creative stuff we've done, in some and in other projects. You can see that actually engaging users, citizens, local businesses, and so on is a lot of work. People would like to be asked, but when you then invite them to something, to actually make the time for it and so on takes effort. So it's not just about putting out an ad in the municipality website or something like that. You have to go around, you have to ask people, you have to be very, very sort of in contact with people. So it's a lot of effort. It's also important to sort of address people personally. And we also work a lot with trying to make these activities, these co-creative activities, really fun in order to get people to think that, yeah, I gave up some of my time, but I also enjoyed the experience. I think it's not, it's actually super important. I want to present what we've done in Fredrikstad so far and what we are planning to do. In Fredrikstad, one of the quite unique at least, modes of transport is ferries. They have a number of ferry lines, very nice ferries. And in some, they are also introducing a new ferry, which is the one on the picture there, which is from Hike, which is also a partner in some. And this ferry is designed in a very non-traditional way, with much more focus, I would say, on the passenger and the passenger's experience. And it's electric, and it's designed to be able to be autonomous. It's not autonomous at the moment, but that is the idea with it. And what we want to do is to see how can we develop services around the ferry, because the ferry is there. We can absolutely make some changes to the ferry, but we're thinking about how can we create new services that will make this ferry more attractive, because in Fredrikstad, as you heard Amalia talk, there is a lot of cars driving around. People are driving cars, even though they have these nice ferries. As a tourist coming there, or as a visitor coming there, taking a trip with a ferry is a much nicer experience than driving the car. So what we have done is that we started with workshops with citizens together with city representatives and designers. We try to co-create here, not just having workshops with citizens. And we try to involve these people who would benefit from this ferry and understand all the positive and negative experiences of today's commute. So see how are they traveling now? What are they doing more? If you think about your trips to work, you do a lot of other things. It might be, I take the car because I also do the shopping, or I pick up my kids from school or whatever. And we're trying to understand all these situations and what's positive and what is negative. And starting with this sort of citizens' perspective on it. And it's already led to some new services being introduced, like a new bus line and so on. And here you can see pictures from these workshops. And on the top, you can see maps of Fredrikstad, and you can see pins and yarn. So we had people mapping out their trip as it is now, the yellow ones, where you can see that everybody's going over a big bridge on a toll road and so on. And the blue ones, which is the possible routes while you're using the ferry, and also then cycling and walking and so on. And we had the first of the workshop, because it was a series of workshops, it was on a ferry, and the other ones were at the workplace in an industrial area where this ferry connects very nicely. So we learned a lot about sort of what are the things that you do, which parts is nice, which part is not that nice to cycle, for instance. Can we do something about that? What are the things that you are doing and so on? And we saw that there were a lot of things that we might add as a service at the ferry stops, which works then as a sort of mobility hub. And we can add stuff there to make that trip more attractive. So in the next week, next Friday, we're doing a second series of work. So we have done a couple of workshops, but now we're doing workshop 2, so it's a new version of a workshop. And to this workshop, we have invited not only citizens, but also service providers and local businesses. And we try to co-create new solutions that adds value to the ferries based on these insights from the first workshops. And we think that we're marketing this as new business opportunities for the local business and service providers, and a chance to short-circuit some city processes and try to create a solution that will add to the experience, and we try to, in this workshop, we will enact and make short videos of the solutions to see that, okay, this is how the ferry trip will be when you have these services there. And it could be stuff like perhaps leaving shoes to be resold at the ferry when you go to work, and then picking up on the return, or walking school bus from the school so you can pick up your kids by the ferry instead of going to the school, and all these sort of things. We can think of a lot of things. And in the end, we will have a workshop where we will create simple prototypes of solutions and evaluate these solutions in the context of this ferry stops, and with the goal of implement the successful ones. The sort of idea behind everything that we try to really get through is co-creating is really fun, and we really want to have fun. So that's a picture from after the first workshop. You can see partners in the Sun project, and we're all having fun. And we're going to have a longer webinar where you can have possibilities to think of how to co-create in your city and so on. Tentatively the 11th of December, and we will send a formal invitation at a late date. So if you're interested in knowing more and learning more about co-creation and how that can be implemented in your location, you're welcome. And with that, I think I'm ready. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pontus. Thanks a lot for telling us about the co-creation activities and how we encourage in other cities on how to engage the citizens in co-creation and the importance of co-creation activities towards policies and decisions on shared mobilities. So we have a question in the Q&A. If you want to take the question, I can read it for you. And it reads, do you have a measure for people's responses following the project's implementation? In other words, are participants in the co-creation process later asked about the reactions to the implementation of some of the ideas they proposed?
Yeah, as we heard Thea present, I mean, acceptance of the solutions are measured in the cities before and during and after. So we will have those measures. From my perspective, if we can actually see that we have solutions that being implemented would be a success, I would say, to see things actually happen in these cities. In a situation like Fredrikstad, they have quite good control over, I mean, you can see how many people are using the ferry at the moment, and we introduced that and so on. But I mean, we have so many other factors, but we will absolutely, there will be measures going on in the SUM project, but also on a more qualitative level, we will see that during the evaluation workshops and so on, see how well does this work, and then we can see, do these things actually becoming implemented? And I would say that would be a success if we can get some new services and new businesses run around these ferry stops, for instance. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pontus. I'll go right quickly into the next presentation because in view of time, we are actually on time, but then we would kindly run you through the open data platform of the SUM project, because today we have been talking a lot about data collected for the measurement of the methodology, and data also collected for the monitoring and assessment of user acceptance, and also the co-creation activities. So where would all this data be put in with regards to the SUM project? I believe it's more of your interest. And so within the SUM project, we have as one of the tasks to create an open platform for monitoring shared mobility services in Europe. But then when we talk about an open data platform, what comes to mind? Several things come to mind. You may want to think about it's a web-based interface. You may want to think it's where you can find and have access to data and information, which means it's a central repository, and there is possibility to reuse the information from the people who put them there or the organizations. Therefore, it's organizational data, and you expect, and we all expect, that this data should be clean, it should be processed, it should have good quality, and it should be able to be transformed in different reports. In the SUM project, we have several objectives to address the open data platform, which are that it is open access, which means everyone who is a member of the platform has access to the data. And this data we are talking about is what you've been hearing today on the activities in the living labs, on the methodologies that are used to measure the various KPIs, to use the various shared modes, on the push and pull interventions, and also on the integration of other cities. So you'll be able to have access to this data, and the data it's possible for you to have dynamic reports, to navigate and to compare data from different living labs with regards to your own use case, which it's maybe familiar to that which was presented in the platform. An overview of the platform, which is yet to be launched, is that every member of the platform has access to it, and you can navigate through the living labs. At the moment, we are building on the current 9 cities of the SUM project, but we hope that there will be more participants in the future because it's an open European open data platform. So it's open to other cities that are also working on use cases that are related to new and shared mobility services. You can navigate through a city. Maybe you go through the city of Munich and you can see more data on the interventions that were done with regards to the use case, how people were nudged to use more public transport or to encourage people to have more shared vehicle accessibilities, and what were the user acceptance technologies that methodologies that were implemented, what co-creation activities were done, and these are all the kind of data you can use. You can measure the KPI and relate this to your own existing use case. In terms of accessibility and usage, it is going to be a web-based platform, so it is open to all the cities that have specific accounts. So as a city, if you're a member of the platform, you would have a specific account where you can share data on your own interventions that you have done. Mindful that within the SUM project, we have the main cities and we have the following cities. So some of the following cities are also learning from the interventions of the main cities. So this is something that you can do as a following city or as a new city that plans to join the platform and learn on the interventions and the KPIs that were measured within the SUM project, and of course share your own knowledge with other cities. It is important that we share knowledge so that we can encourage and enhance more use of shared mobility, which is the overall goal. Also, when we talk about open access of the platform, it means it is free for every member. You can immediately have access to data. You can access it online. It is available for you to reuse, and you have user rights. And you can also work with navigation dashboards to compare data from other cities. And of course, welcome to share your own data. If we go to a more use case scenario and you want to talk about the city of Munich, we see that they are working more on new shared mobility with regards to bike sharing, car sharing, e-scooters, as you may have already heard from our colleague Amalia. And it is very important for them to enhance sustainable urban mobility. Therefore, when you go to the city of Munich in the open data platform, these are the kind of data categories you would find. These are the use cases where you would find interventions on push and pull measures that were done, and then you can see if this relates more to your city. Of course, it will be very helpful data and information for you to enhance your own quality or improve e-scooter and bike sharing, car sharing usability in your setting. This is more of like what kind of push interventions and pull interventions are expected or are ongoing within the city of Munich, where we've already heard that they are also working on parking charging. They are also working on restricted park and residence areas and permits to encourage more shared mobility and usage of public transport, and also with specific cases on speed limits to reduce speed lanes for bicycles. When we talk about the pool interventions in the city of Munich, you would find data on the MAS tool that has been used for carpooling and ticketing. You will also find data on public transport tariff and zones widening. And of course, all this data is expected to be found within the open data platform. For the platform's uptake and continuity, at the moment and the roadmap you see on your screen, we are currently working with the 9 SUM Living Lab cities and the 6 Observer cities that have also joined the project. And potentially by 2028, we look forward to having more cities from the European that are related to this use case. So you're very welcome to follow our website, to request to join, to share in the knowledge, and also make use of the knowledge from the data platform. This platform will be integrated within the Pan-European Value Chain Association. It's important to note that the platform would work under an association or within an association by the end of the project. And members of the association can feel free to share mobility data and are also working closely with various transport and mobility services that are related to shared mobility and shared tools in various cities. So please feel free to follow our website, because you would get the launch information on the platform. It's very important, and we will communicate with you on the next steps. And we are happy to have more cities join this open data platform, where we can share more data to enhance more shared mobility. Thank you very much. And I give it back to you, Lisa. Please take on and thanks.
Thank you very much, Prisca. I think it's my role to close this webinar today. So first of all, I'd like to thank you everyone for joining and apologize for being slightly late today. We hope this webinar provided some useful insights for all of you. And if you'd like to find out more about the project or exchange with our partners, we invite you to join 2 of our next events that will be taking place very soon. The first one is on the 5th of November in Barcelona. We will be attending the Smart City Expo World Congress, and some will organize a dedicated session with our sister projects such as Gemini, Mobility for Use, and MetaCase. So if you'd like to find out more, please join us at this event. And the second one will be a webinar on December 2nd, which will be hosted by our colleagues from the Unchained project, and which will be looking at urban mobility and logistics specifically, and we'll have 2 of our living labs participating. So 2 upcoming events and plenty more to come. But for that, if you want to keep in touch, please join either our newsletter or look at our LinkedIn and Twitter accounts if you wish to have further information. You can also reach out to us by email, and we'll do our best to get back to you very promptly. Once again, I'm closing this event. Many thanks to our speakers for the great presentation. Thank you to Prisca and Ainhoa at ERTICO for organizing the event. And thank you all for joining. We hope to see you very soon and wish you a good day. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you all and have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.